What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. I'm the host, David, the new theologian. Today, we're going to be continuing the series on hadiths. We're going to look at Dr. Shabir Ali and him discuss how did scholars authenticate hadith? How did they test them? I think it's very important when we're looking at this set of texts and how influential they are in Islam. What do scholars actually do with them? How do they determine them? So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And I'm going to go ahead and share the sound. All right, let's get into it.
Welcome to Let the Quran Speak. I'm Aisha, your host. In today's episode, we'll continue our discussion on the series, taking a balanced approach to hadith by focusing on different methods of testing. How exactly do our scholars determine whether a hadith comes from a valid source dating back to the Prophet, peace be upon him? Let's sit down with Dr. Shabir Ali to get his insight. Welcome to the show, Dr. Shabir.
Pleasure to be on.
So let's do a quick recap of the different type of hadith that exist out there.
Well, in terms of classifications, the Muslim scholars have, on the one hand, said that they're authentic hadiths, and on the other hand, there are fabricated hadiths. So, sahih on the one hand, mawdu' on the other hand, to use the Arabic terms. In between, you have a wide range of different shades of classifications. So close to authentic, you would have something that is classified as hasan. It's good, sound, but not quite authentic. And then close to mawdu' or fabricated, you would have the da'if or weak. The chain of authorities going back to the Prophet, peace be upon him, is not very reliable. And then there are other kinds of classifications. Sometimes a hadith is said to be a maqlub, that it is overturned, either with regards to its text or its chain of narrator. So each hadith has a text, meaning the content, or what it intends to teach. And it has a chain of narrators linking this teaching all the way back to the Prophet, peace be upon him.
So all within the spectrum of valid and authentic to not reliable.
And that's right. They all usually come with the two components, the chain plus the text itself.
That's interesting. So even mawdu'a or weak hadiths will still have a chain of narration, it seems. It's just not a verified chain of narration. I'm not exactly sure. I'm trying to understand more on that. Very interesting that both would have that. You would think that if it had a chain of narration, it'd be more considered authentic. But it seems to be that the way it's graded is on a spectrum versus good or bad. So it's kind of a spectrum. Has there ever been a case where a hadith has been kind of on the weaker spectrum and then has been switched and changed over to a strong hadith, possibly even sahih? I'd be interested to see more of the history of that.
So sometimes the chain is said to be overturned or mistaken in such a way that you may have one, like some name replaces the actual name in the chain. By mistake.
Like you mean as it's going
So
up
it's a
back
chain.
to the Prophet, someone's
Yeah.
name gets changed.
Yeah,
Okay.
let's say that the compiler, Ibn Majah as an example, says I got this text from A person, who got it from person B, who got it from person C, who got it from person F. And person F, that's a name replacing what we would expect to be D. So there is some kind of mistake in the chain like this. Sometimes the text itself is mistaken in that what it intends.
Is he saying that there's a gap in the narration? Because he went from C to F, and he said we would expect that to be person D. So he's saying like somebody later on, like F, is being utilized when it should be somebody that's closer to the time. It's really hard to understand what he's saying unless he's saying that. But it doesn't seem to me that he's saying that a name is getting replaced. It sounds more like he's saying that there's a gap in the narration because he went from C to F and it should be D. I would think if he's saying that it would be replaced, he would say that the name of this person is a different name. It's somebody else. I mean, but if you're saying the F person is coming where the D person should be, that seems like more of a gap. I'd be interested to learn more on that. Let's continue.
To teach actually comes out opposite. I'll give you a quick example of this, otherwise it sounds very theoretical. Muslims generally know that in our teachings we give in such a way generally that when the right hand gives, the left hand doesn't know. To maintain that kind of privacy between us and God. We're not doing it to show anybody, it's only for God's pleasure. So we don't publicize our good deeds. Well, so you give it the right hand, the left hand doesn't know. But the hadith in Sahih Muslim has it that you give, the right hand shouldn't know what the left hand gives. So the scholars think that this was intended to be just like we know it, the right hand gives and the left hand doesn't know, but the narrative has got it actually mixed up.
Oh, I see. Okay. So a bit of confusion there.
So you have this kind of confusion occurring.
So how do you test the chains of narrators?
On that point with the switching of the hands, how does that? I mean, clearly you got to choose one, right? So if the Quran has it one way and the Hadith has it another way, what do you do with that? You know, especially if you find it in a Sahih volume. How do you delineate that? I'd be interested to hear more views, more people speak about it. Because all I've heard regarding hadiths from people who are Muslim is that they are the sayings of the Prophet. And you can go read those for yourself and you're going to come across some crazy stuff. So it's good to have somebody who is a scholar explain that just because it is compiled and it is graded in a certain way does not necessarily mean that it is believed, especially by scholars, right? People who study this stuff in the original languages, in academia, peer-reviewed documents, other people are looking over their work, those kind of people. Doesn't mean that they believe all of these things in this are the sayings of the Prophet. That's important to know. Let's continue. Oh, before I continue, it's kind of like where scholars will say they don't believe Paul wrote all 13 letters of the New Testament. Well, scholars in Islam don't believe that all the sayings that are attributed to the Prophet in a Sahih volume are actually attributed to the Prophet Muhammad. Very interesting, very interesting. You kind of see the parallels of the faiths, right? Of the religions, Christianity and Islam. You see the parallels of how they're looking at documents from an academic level. Very interesting. Let's continue.
Like, is there a sign? So how do you test the chains of narrators? Like, is there a science behind that? How do scholars approach the subject?
Yeah, so what scholars did eventually was to compile biographies of narrators, almost like dictionaries. You go to the dictionary, you look up a person's name by alphabetical order, and then you will find some details about this person. The scholars within that field of testing hadith started gathering the information, and now it reached these compilations. So we can find that this person was said to be honest and trustworthy by such and such individuals, or he has been criticized by such and such individuals.
So it's not necessarily because I was thinking when you're talking about the hadith, I'm thinking it's a biography and also like maybe their relationship to the Prophet. So it's not necessarily that, it's about their credibility as a person and therefore you rely on them or you don't.
I think you're not wrong in your previous presupposition. It's actually both. The obvious intention and purpose is to tell us about the reliability of these individuals, and that includes also their connection with the Prophet, peace be upon him. So if this person had met one of the companions of the Prophet, we would want to know that. If this person did not meet one of the companions but met one of the successors of the companions, who are called tabi'un in Arabic, or he met one of the successors of the successors, the tabi'in, we would want to know that. We would also want to know their dates of birth and deaths so that we can see who actually met whom if we went to a...
I mean, you can have the purest motives. You can have the most pure intentions, and you could still be wrong. I mean, what we know from neuroscience, what we know about memory, how we ourselves can have false memories. We can remember things incorrectly. And so it's very hard to really pin down the accuracy of things based on memory and what someone told someone else and all that kind of stuff. It's just very difficult. It is very difficult with what we know now about memory and the neuroscience out there. Um, I think that's something to look into, understanding how our brain is just fickle. You know, we don't remember things correctly, and that's a problem. Let's continue.
Another entry in the biography, and we want to know, are these two persons connected? If one claims to have learned from the other, is that claim supportable by their chronology? If they lived in two separate eras and also in two separate places, then we would want to know, because in that case, one cannot claim to have heard directly from the other. There's been some mistake in somebody making that claim.
How do you test, so that's the narrators, how do you test the context?
The text of the hadith and its teaching can be tested against a number of different criteria. One, does it accord with what the Quran itself teaches? Two, does it accord with what other hadiths teach? Because
Before he continues his list, I want to ask, is this the proper, the true methodology of how Islam looks at hadiths? That number one, it concords with the Quran. If it doesn't concord with the Quran, then we're not having it. Is that true? Do all Muslims believe this? I'd be interested to know if there are Muslims who watch this. Do you have a different list than Shabir Ali, or do you agree with him, or is this standard Islamic theology? Let's continue.
it could be true, does it accord with what other hadiths teach? Because it could be that this one hadith is an isolated type of report. It does not really gel with the rest of the teachings. Third, not necessarily in this order, does it gel with what is known to be the Islamic teaching in general? Now, today, of course, we can't apply the criteria in this way, because now we have the whole system already delivered to us. But as the system of Islamic thought was being formulated, there are certain things which came to be registered to Muslim scholars as being the fundamentals of our faith. So if a hadith now comes contrary to these fundamentals of the faith, the hadith itself comes to be viewed with suspicion, because the generations one after another, close to the time of the Prophet, peace be upon him, are such that everybody knows that some things are so fundamental to the faith. Like, let's say adultery is forbidden. Everybody knows that. So if somebody comes with a hadith theoretically to justify adultery, that would automatically be ruled out. And while this is a clearly, a simple example, there are other examples that the scholars have used to weed out hadiths which obviously are not authentic.
I think you gave us a good overview for our next segment, where we'll just talk about specific misunderstood hadith as in different fields. So thank you very much, Dr. Shabir.
You're welcome.
Hey, YouTube.
Last thing is he speaking before they compiled the documents? Is he speaking before they compiled the documents? Because I'm curious. He said that fundamental faith of Islam, the hadith contradicts that. Then obviously it's seen suspiciously. But is this before they compiled the Sahih Muslim and Sahih al-Bukhari? Or is this not? Because he said in the generations of the Prophet and the companions, right? I'd be curious if anybody knows. Let me know. Anyway, we'll go ahead and stop it there. I'm going to stop sharing, guys. I appreciate you guys checking out the channel. If you guys like this stuff, please think about subscribing, commenting. Let me know what you're reading, if you're reading any theology books. Still have sincere questions to Muslims. Just in the next chapter, actually, in chapter 14, I have a question, and I'll make a video about that. But thank you guys for watching. Hopefully you find this informative, help you understand what other people believe, because it is truly theology that determines how people act. Thank y'all for watching. Take care.